Hi, my name is Ryan Hogan, and today I'll be demoing our airport database management system. So the system starts out with our data stream Python file, and this uses Apache Spark to generate data for our system. We can go ahead and start running it through this Python file, and this essentially takes it creates randomized values as well as values from our fixed entities to publish both flight and ticket data. So the flight data consists of the flight ID, status, aircraft ID, destination airports and departure airports, as well as the timestamp for those. And as we can see here, it's already published the first flight data. And then for each flight data, it's also going to publish all the ticket data. So that includes the passenger's passport number, citizenship, seat number, and the associated flight ID. So it goes ahead and publishes each instance of all that data to our PubSub. You would have seen here, we got a slight delay on it, and that's to prevent the issue we ran into with the foreign key error for the SQL server. So this is all getting published to our PubSub. As we can see here, this is just some graphs to chart as the messages are coming through. But the PubSub essentially acts as a connector point from our local machine into the cloud infrastructure. So the next stage of the process is our data flow pipeline. This is built using Apache Beam. This is a custom pipeline we had to build because Google Cloud Platform doesn't have a straightforward integration from PubSub into an SQL server. So the pipeline essentially consists of reading from the PubSub, decoding the JSON messages, and then filtering it into flight and ticket data, writing it to our BigQuery warehouse, converting them into JDBC rows, and then publish them into the various tables on the SQL server. So we can go ahead and run this pipeline through this run command. If we copy this over into a command prompt terminal, it starts a new instance of the pipeline. We've already got one running here because it takes a few minutes to boot up just to save time. And if we jump over into this instance of the pipeline, we can see here the various components of it in this graph sort of layout. We can see reading from the PubSub, decoding the messages, and then filtering it into flight and ticket data. We can already see here it's already been running for a little bit, and we've got some of the components sort of coming through now. And if we jump over to the SQL database and we query our flight table, we can already see two of the flights being published, and that's CB814. If we jump back over to our script that's running, we can see here that was the flight ID that got published. So that's how essentially the data gets moved from our local machine into a SQL server. We can also query the ticket table and see all the ticket data that's been published as well. This is also appearing in our BigQuery warehouse. Here we can see the other two flight and ticket tables for that, and that's going to be used a little bit later on our interface for the data reporting. So to access the interface, that's how we essentially interact with the database, how users can sort of query it and view various elements of it. We run this Python file, which creates a new Flask app that we can access by clicking on this link, and this will take us over to the main page once it loads up. We can see here when the user first comes onto the page, they'll be logged out, and they'll need to log in using a username and password. If they don't have an account, they can register here and then enter in their username and password, and these details are just stored in a simple user's JSON file over here. Once a user's created an account, they can log in and they'll get access to the database. If they're not logged in, they aren't able to access any of the main pages. So the home page for our interface is simply just displaying all the flights that are currently in the database. We can see here the details of all the flights, and it's that same details that got published through the messages. We can also click on the aircraft ID here and view various information about that specific aircraft. So we can see here for this one, this is a United Airlines Boeing 787. We can also check in. So if we grab one of these flight IDs, we can paste the information in here and we can get the passengers for that flight. And we can see here all the passengers that are on that flight. We can click on any one of these passport numbers and that will pull up their first name, last name, date of birth, and citizenship. Now all this data obviously didn't get published to the PubSub. This data exists as fixed tables in our database. So if we have a look, we've got aircraft, airline, people. We can query any one of these and that will pull up all the people in the database and their associated passport IDs. So these are the fixed CSVs that I mentioned earlier. Back over onto the interface, we can also query the database. We've got some predefined SQL queries that a user can click on, and we can select and we can basically query any of the tables in the database. For example, we can query the aircraft table, and that will show us all the aircrafts that are in the database. We can see here it's a pretty long query, and this also allows sort of users to update any instances that got published, delete them, and make sort of any changes they want to. The final page is our airport statistics page. This is slightly changed from when we demoed it. This no longer uses the Python file to generate graphs. We use Google Looker now for this. And we can see here we've got a sort of predefined sort of template over here. This is the template here that we just insert into the interface. Here we can see the flight status distribution. We've got a heat map, departures per hour, and citizenships per flight. And this is linked to the BigQuery database because we had some trouble connecting the SQL server with Google Looker. And this is a lot more interactive than what we had previously. Previously, they were just essentially images of plots done by the Python file. So this allows users to really interact with the graphs and allows a much more intuitive sort of interface for the users. All these pages have a refresh button at the top. Also going back, we'll refresh it. As we can see, we've got some new flight data already that's come in, that's been sort of published, and then users can log out. The system does save their login. So if we logged in here, we jump over to the page again, if we exit out and jump back over to the page, we will see that we are still logged in here. And all of the Python files, as well as setup sort of information, can be found on my GitHub. Here we've got a sort of README file that has the structure and how to set up all the different components of the system to be able to run it on any local machine.